Okay, we've launched SynthEyes again. And in the 3D room, we can see we have like these custom meshes. Head high, head low, head mid. I think that these are now included with SynthEyes from Boris Effects. So I think Boris Effects basically just included these. Let's move this guy over a bit so we can see what we're looking at. W. I'm moving back. Okay, so I'm not a huge fan. I'm not a particular fan of like the topology and topography of this mesh. And I don't like that there's a high, mid, and low. I don't need that. I never have ever needed that in production. So I'm gonna go back and do what I just demonstrated earlier without anybody being able to see my screen. And I'm going to look in the Applications, Boris Effects, SynthEyes 2025 folder under Custom Meshes. And we have a head high, head low, and head mid. Don't really need them. Let's look at those once again. Here's head high. Here's head low. It looks like, yeah, I don't know if these were made with, maybe with the Make Human plugin of Blender. Because it looks like, with the Make Human plugin, you used to, or you can, just dial up how much, male, female, and it's a slider. So this looks like it was set right in the middle. And then there are other ethnicities, and it's just sliders. So it's kind of nice. But anyway, I'm just not a fan. I don't need the neck. I've never needed a neck. Because if you're going to get to that point, you're probably going to have a bigger rig. And that's going to be supplied by whomever you are doing the track for. So I'm going to get rid of all those. Don't need those in my custom meshes. But I do have some custom meshes of my own. I made my own chisel. Because I think the chisels and SynthEyes that are like really like kind of like this. I don't like that either. I want mine to be more sharp and pointy. And then I have some earthlings. Now, this was another mesh that I made using the Make Human plugin add-on in Blender. And I just basically matched it to the pose of the original earthling in SynthEyes. And that's the high poly, and this is the low poly, and there you go. Okay. So now that I've got that all done, let's just test my earlier assumption that find new scripts, that doesn't change any of that. So in order to update that list, we have to close SynthEyes and reopen it. But that is how you would add your own custom meshes to SynthEyes. So when you look, again, that's Applications, Boris Effects. So if you're on Windows, I don't know, Program Files, Boris Effects, SynthEyes 2025, custom meshes. This has been in there for a few years. So just drop whatever you want into that custom meshes folder and voila, you have your own custom meshes. And if you don't like the ones that maybe are supplied by the publisher of the software, you can just delete them. So that's good. So here we go. Now you know how to do that. I wanted to return to our gecko from yesterday. And I want to just do some things. So let's look in, I'm going to close that window, don't need that anymore. Tutorials. My little lizard guy, project files. So let's go to version 1 of that scene. Oh, here we go. And here we have our teapot attached to our gecko using the GeoH tracker. But this was just like a primer, just some, I wanted to show somebody how to attach a mesh to a tracker. And if we look in the trackers room, we can also see that here. We have 2 trackers. So I did the first one, and then I even added a second tracker, which tracks the rotation and the scaling. So as the gecko moves back and forth, you can actually see it getting bigger and smaller. So that was neat. Let's save a new version. Save next version. So this is version 00-02. My internal naming convention for the Matchmoving company. That way we don't ever send clients anything that's not just a version 1, version 2, version 3. We don't send them like version 73. Silly. But I'm going to delete this because I don't need that. I don't need this. I don't even want the object in there anymore. And I just have my camera. And what I wanted to do, I started talking yesterday about if I had a mesh, I would just use the mesh in the GeoH tracker, possibly. So let's go into the rotomasking room. Now, the new rotomasking tools are game-changing. I'm going to hide this. I'm going to lock this layer, and I'm going to show this spline off. So that's just the spline that contains the whole screen. That's your base spline that you always get when you launch Synthesize. In fact, we don't even really need that spline. Let me show that spline again. So basically, do an auto track. Everything in that spline is going to be included. That spline is attached to camera 1. If we turned it into a garbage spline, it would eliminate the entire screen. So let's just get rid of it because we don't want that. What I want, I'm going to start with a spline that is, actually no, let's hit the escape key on that. The first click is going to be the middle of your spline. So let's click right in the middle of his face somewhere. So that's good. And then I'm going to click, and I'm going to just draw around his face like this. And the reason I'm doing this and not using this super groovy new rotomasking tools is because with this, I just get more control over what I'm going to include. Because if I just use that automatic roto spline tool, I'd probably end up doing just as much fiddling around with, don't include his body. But then, I mean, his body and his head, texturally and color-wise, they're kind of indiscernible from one another. It might work, but I don't know. So I also just held down shift-click and added another point in here. So let's shift-click right here. Uh-oh, I hear my dog ringing the doorbell upstairs. I hope she doesn't pee in the house because I'm not going up there. Okay. What's your opinion on how Boris affects Synthesize development? Are there new features worthy of subscription plan? What's my opinion? All right, I'm looking at the other. I can't see screen. I'm looking at the other comments. I really wish that I was better at pronouncing other people's names. Like, is it Ayith? Adjith? I don't know, but hi. Anyway, it's not necessarily a difficult question. It's just that I have, I'm friends with these guys, and so I don't, and I've known Russ for decades, and the software, I obviously love it, and it's great. But, I've always had complaints about, how some things are implemented, and I've always, wanted more. And I feel like they are doing that. I feel like there's, more responsiveness. But at the same time, I feel like I don't get quite as much individual attention as I may have before. Be that all as it may. Okay. Let's get back to this. I'm going to add a tracker and go Go to the trackers room, and I'm just going to track any old feature on his face. So let's see what's kind of like stays in the middle a lot. I think the same feature we tracked yesterday, this little dark spot under our gecko's nose. I'll make that a little bigger. And turn that off. I'll set key now and key smooth to 8 and 8. And track, stop and auto key is on, good. So great. And here's the thing. Okay, good. That's fine. Never mind. Don't mind me. And so why am I tracking this? You'll see. I'm just going to hold down the D key like I usually do. Keep my eye on the screen while I reach for my water. Okay. Tracking away. When you hold down the D key like I am, it's a little slower. It's not quite as fast as if you just tap the space bar. Now, let's turn off, because it's holding on really well. I'm going to turn off stop on auto key. And I'm just going to tap the space bar. And I should be able to just let it go. Hey, look at that, Ma. Look, Ma, no hands. But still, the tracker it's a bit slower. And it's a little bit slower because this is UHD, and it's a slightly larger frame. All of these are in memory, though. So there you go. That size of your search area and your tracker pattern, that's also going to affect how fast things go. So now let's go back to rotomasking, and I'm going to say import tracker to control point. So I believe I select the tracker first, click on that, and then I'm going to just click on the spline 1 master control point. Import the tracker's relative motion? Yes. Or move it to the absolute position? No. So yes. And now, hey, look, we've now, our spline is tracking nicely. A couple things though. So you'll notice when you do that it doesn't parent the spline to the tracker. What it's doing is copying the keyframes of the spline, of the X and Y position of this, of the tracker. The X and Y position of the tracker, those keyframes get copied to the spline master control point. I would prefer that it parented it, but it's just not something that Synthesize really does. But anyway, what I can do now though is I can go to like frame, let's do this on frame 80. Let's start there. And I'm going to select all of my control points and I'm going to rotate them. So now by doing it this way, I am adding keyframes to the positions of the control points. I hope that makes sense, because what I'm not doing here, okay, that's good. So that's doing the right thing. What I'm not doing, if I were to select the whole spline and I forget, is it control? Yeah. If I do this on frame 80, oh, maybe not. Never mind. I was wrong. I made an assumption there that was incorrect. But if I move it on frame 80 to a different position, and then I go back a frame, you'll see that it just snaps over and then snaps back. And that's why I was grabbing all the points and rotating the points. So anyway, there you have it. I'm just going to do some manual dragging these around. You can select more than one at a time by just circling them and dragging them over. And got to be careful where you grab though, because if you grab on the spline itself, you'll move everything. And to deselect multiple select points, you have to click and like drag out a little dash somewhere. Not a huge fan of that either, but this is way better than it used to be. All right, let's get this guy a little better. I'm gonna go back to frame 40. And same way, drag this whole thing over. And where's it? Control. Oh yeah, I'm rotating the whole thing. That's no good. I thought I could just grab multiple points and rotate those like I do in Blender, which I love. So, but I can't do that, so it's fine. We're just gonna tweak these into place. Doesn't have to be perfect. This is a garbage spline, and it's not really even gonna be a garbage spline because what we're gonna do here is we're going to make this camera 01, and we're not even going to leave it at camera 01. We're going to turn that into an object, and we're going to do an object track. But all right, let's see how this is holding on. That's pretty good. See, I snapped it into a new position here. How annoying. I don't know how I did that. Frame 81. Like I said, this is a garbage spline, so I'm not going to fixate on it, even though I'm a perfectionist. And I was nearly falling asleep just a few minutes ago. Just tweak this a little bit, and we'll do this. Get this over here a little more. All right. Sorry, this is boring. This is boring as hell. I have to make better content than this. Uh, 200, good. Can I do that? Is that going to be okay? Great. And move the whole thing over. Grab all these guys. All right. I did it again. So that's a little annoying. Yeah, that's super annoying. So this is why I believe he is Ross. Actually, no. Aren't you in South America somewhere? Anyway, that's kind of a pain in the neck. This is why I would prefer that the spline got parented to the tracker and not copied the keyframes from the tracker. Anyway, be all that as it may. I can delete this keyframe though. I think I would have to do that in the graph editor. But you know what? I'm just going to let this go. I'm going to just let it ride. So I'm going to add shot, add moving object. And now, so this, that we have the active tracker post being the object, this spline I'm going to set that to object 1. I'm also going to go to the solver. I'm going to make the camera disabled, but I'm going to make the object automatic. And let's go into the features room, advanced, and I want to see what these blips are going to look like. So let's go auto re-blip. That's probably good. And let's just blips all frames. And now we can talk. Any questions? You are from Spain. Why did I not? I knew that. I did know that, right? My memory is terrible. Okay, there we go. And now let's do peel all. And you know what? Let's undo peel all and look once again here. How many trackers are we going to put in there? It depends on the speed of the camera move or the object, how much it's moving around. So a general rule could be like 1 tracker per frame. I'm sorry, but yeah, 1 like auto tracker per frame. But when the object's really not moving around that much with much parallax, you're not going to really get much from that. So I'm just going to leave this at 120 for now. And then I'm going to do peel all because I undid my peel all and got rid of those trackers. And let's clear all blips for the time being. Of course, the trackers are nearly the same color as the gecko. So let's go to display and turn off show image. So that's okay. I mean, it's not the best, but we definitely could use a lot more trackers. So let's undo that again and set this back to like 540 and do peel all. You don't want to turn it up and then keep finding trackers because, like converting blips into trackers, because it'll just keep re-blipping blips that are already turned into trackers, if that made any sense. Anyway, clear all blips. That didn't seem to help. Oh yeah, there are quite a few more. So that's good. What I want to see in the trackers is what looks like the shape of the head as I'm scrubbing. I'm going to do another pass though. I'm going to make this 12 and 20. I do this a lot. And blips all frames. Don't need to be showing the image to do that. While that's going, I wanted to take a look here. Does anybody else here use the software Cloud Compare? Because Cloud Compare can, if you have a dense enough point cloud, it can automatically topologize your point cloud in a way that's somewhat elegant. Doesn't look so bad. Peel all again. And now let's clear all blips. So we can see our bigger features and our smaller features there. And now, you know, that's looking more like an object moving around. Great. And let's take tracker 1 and make that part of the object because it is part of the object. Show image again, and let's go to the solver and click automatic. Go. Sorry, not click automatic. In automatic solution technique, click go. And it's going, and it's going. when you add more trackers like this, MeshLab is okay. It also does the same thing. And they're both similar, and they both, like in the Venn diagram of both of their capabilities, there's a lot of overlap. But yes, MeshLab is also useful for that. Is MeshLab free? I know Cloud Compare is free. Wow, this solve is taking a long time. Sometimes this happens. Our HPix is looking okay. We're going to do some cleanup, and we should be good. Why am I doing this? Why am I tracking the head? Well, I'm tracking the head because if you remember yesterday when I attached the teapot to our head, I'm actually going to show how to use the GeoH tracker to track the rotation of the eye. Now, to do that, the eye really needs to be in the right place. It needs to be in the right position. And you can't really do that without at least a point cloud. And I may even use Synthesize to create a photogrammetric mesh. It is open source. The future of software. Which brings us back to our Boris effects. Like, is it worth the subscription? I think, by the way, I think it is worth paying for the upgrade. Now, I am no fan of software subscriptions. I don't think anybody is. I think some MBA somewhere talked Adobe into, hey, you could create a subscription model and make more money. And it's less and less about making great tools for artists and more about extracting rents from people. So I'm just not very interested in software landlords. All right, let's see here. Probably not going to make any friends with that statement. Turn that off. Here's a thing. You notice that I had the this clicked, and when I was over in, where was I just in? The trackers room? Not in the trackers room. I was in the, I don't remember where I was. The solver room. No, not the, oh yeah. So that magic wand is still selected. That should not be selected. Like when you change rooms, it's a safe assumption to say, hey, that user probably doesn't want to continue to create things because none of the creation menus are available. So let's deactivate that instead of making them go back into that other room. And all right, but here we go. And our point cloud is pretty dense. And then it goes a little nuts here at the end. At that point, I wonder why. Anyway, we can just see there are trackers in here that are wrong. So let's manually delete those. This stuff is really not good. These guys are not good. Hopefully this will clean up very easily. What I'm trying to do is photogrammetrically recreate our head somewhat. So I don't think any of these are particularly correct. Let's get rid of those. Let's get rid of this. And I don't think I want to refine because this big elongated point cloud, that's definitely not correct. And let's look at the lens. It's not a 399 millimeter lens on whatever sensor size this is. So let's resolve this after having gotten rid of some of that stuff. All right, there's a good video called Creative Software for Profit. I think that's it. On how many great programs have been killed by corporate greed. Yes. I think everybody, you know, software publishers should make money, just like book publishers should make money. But when they just keep buying up the competition and consolidating and then vertically integrating or just killing their competition, buying it up and then eliminating it so that it's not competition anymore, that's a huge problem. And how artists are some of the most affected by how corporations treat creative software. Yes, and kills it after many people spend years honing their skills that are not fully transferable to others. Yeah, exactly. All right. Field of view, 4.8 degrees. All right, so already I know this is not going to be good. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch this to a known lens. No, don't copy that. I'm going to make the focal length, I don't know, like a 35 millimeter lens. No, this is a longer lens than that. Let's say it's a 70 millimeter lens as a guess. And why am I doing that? Because obviously Synthesize is thinking that this lens is super crazy, long, 399 millimeter lens. That's nuts. Obviously it is a longer lens though. When we look, the shallow depth of field is a good indication of that. And the shot is pretty foreshortened. When I put a 70 millimeter lens on here, that is based on the film aspect ratio of a 35 millimeter motion picture camera, which shoots things like, don't go anywhere, I'm still here. So this is a roll of 35 millimeter film, and the sensor size is that wide. It's as big as the film. So it's 1.8 geez, I don't even remember anymore. 1.98 inches, something like that. All right, hit OK on that. This is still not right, but we're getting more in there that looks somewhat correct. Here's another thing you can do. We can find an area where the parallax is, so we can go like frame 107, so 60, so 45 to 107. Here's another thing you can do when it comes to solving. I thought this would just work. Oftentimes Synthesize just is like, hey, look, magic, but apparently not in this case. We can set this to 45 and 107 as our start and end frames. And the other thing you can do is if you hold down, was it the shift key? Not the shift key. Oh boy, man. Where's my memory? There we go. Yeah, it is the shift key. If you hold on the shift key, you can actually drag your the start and end frames of your shot. So you don't have to go into the shot menu and do start and end. You can just do that. And now we're only going to solve this one little section and see if we get better results. We're going to set this back to fixed unknown. So this is one of the things about Synthesize, that when you get into tracking difficult shots, and I never track difficult shots. Everybody wants it to be easy. Like, oh, why shouldn't this just be AI? I'm like, that is so self-defeating, because if you think that AI replacing that dumb task is going to be the solution, someone is thinking they're going to replace your entire job with AI. Nice. Or, wow, the RMS error, look at that. Oh, there it goes. It drops way down. This is not like conspiracy theory. This is a matter of public record. All of the studio heads out there have said, we just want to turn making movies into pushing a button. Dude, there's the whole movie. It was all made by AI. Anyway. So I wouldn't be so interested in all of these things being. There are tools that definitely can help with the creative process, but oftentimes it's about eliminating workers and reducing cost in terms of payroll. Oh, goodness. The dogs are having quite a time up there. All right. I really didn't think this was going to take this long. Be like, oh, this will be easy. When you get an HPix error like that, 4,000 pixels, like this is like Synthai's doing its solving it. It's always like a shark circling its prey, making smaller and smaller circles. So you'll see each pass, each iteration of like it adding more trackers, the HMS error might jump way up, but then it'll shrink back down. I was hoping that by putting in that 70 millimeter lens, it would come up with something better, and it did not. We're getting close. What else do we have here? I love your dogs. I too love my dogs. I should ask them to come down here. Here, hold on. I'm going to go get my dogs while this is solving. Hey, Lula. Tippy. Oh, yeah, here we go. Hi. Hi, come on up. Up. Oh, yeah. Hi. Oh, yes. Oh, hi. Oh, yeah. Oh, come here. Come here. How you doing? Can you come up? Yeah, good girl. Hi. Oh, you're such a good doggy. What do you want? Are you bored? You don't see them. Here, Tippy. Or Lula, come here. Come here. No. Oh, now you can see them. Oh, yes. There you go. Hi. Oh, good girl. Hang on. Let's go to screen right, me lower left. There you go. Yes, you're a doggy. Hey, Lula. Hi. Do you want to get down? Do you want to get down? Okay. There you go. So those are my dogs. Or my dog, one of them. Hi, Lula. See you later. Okay, we're at the 4-minute mark on a solve in Synthesize. So this is rare. And this is why I usually rehearse these things so that I go, oh, okay, I know if I push these buttons. It's like setting up a trade show demo. You know, I've done tons of those in the past, long ago. I would go to the National Association of Broadcasters Convention, or CGRAPH, and I would do these trade show demos. This really is taking way too long, so I'm probably going to cancel that. I'm going to say known. I'm going to go again and just try and see if this helps. God, adorable. They really are. We're going to try this one more time with a known lens. Not a crisp solution. Hi, Tippy. Have you come up to say hi? You won't get in my lap. You're too finicky and old. Hey, look at that. Solve the scene. So that's how long it should take in Synthesize. But still, that is wrong. And basically what this just means there's not enough parallax in the scene to solve. And on a very different note, speaking of AI, do you think if we generate 3D mesh with something like use a GeoH, we might have a better result? Possibly. I am not familiar with Hunyuan 3D. I don't know if this looks Chinese. I don't know. But I've never heard of that software. Oh, look, Tippy's lying on the floor with me. What do I do now? If I was, you know what, I'm just going to keep going. Because this happens. Like, if you're working on a shot, you really don't have the option of it being like you know, we have to make it work. It's got to work. And I'm going to try this again. Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave those the way they were. I'm going to make this a 50 millimeter lens. I'm going to hit go. Keep in mind, when I make those lens changes, I'm making keyframes. So let's see what we got here. No, that's not right either. Let's make this a 35 millimeter lens. I'm making keyframes for the lens. So whatever frame I'm on, frame 106 right now, you'll notice that the focal length is changing, which is not good. Let's stretch this back out, and I'm going to right click on that. And if you shift right click, I believe it'll delete all of the keyframes going forward, just like it does in the tracker room. So let's just solve the first 100 or so frames. And I'm going to make this a 35 millimeter lens, but I'm going to do that on frame 0 because, again, wherever you change that value, it's going to make a keyframe. Whenever it's underlined in red, that is a keyframe. And if you just scrub now, it's not changing, so that's good. I'm going to hit go, see what happens. Yes, from China, but not perfect, but better than anything else I've tested. Like a lot of things from and in China. Not perfect, but better than a lot of other things. For example, the high-speed rail system, unbelievably good. I've been on the high-speed rail system in China, and it is great. All right. Let's see what we got here. I want to see if it just like can solve these frames. 35 millimeters is probably too wide. Actually, I guarantee it is. I'm going to go back to 50. And what frame am I on? Frame 0. Good. Go. So as you do trial and error and you put in more and more closer and closer fields of view or lenses, the solver, it'll become easier and easier because Synthesize is always trying to do the best solution it can do given the parameters it was given. So I don't like this at all. Like, these high numbers are not great. But this is something you can do even with shots that you're working on where you're like, this is just not solving right, and you don't have any camera reports. Camera reports from on set often are wrong. But sometimes they're often right, actually. They're more often right than they are wrong, but sometimes they're just really wrong. But if you have something to start with, the more parameters you can give Synthesize to work with, the less it has to calculate. And oftentimes your guesses may, these numbers are way too high. I'm going to go back to, let's cancel that. I'm going to go back to 70 millimeters, try 75 millimeter lens. It's more of a common prime lens. This is probably closer to 100 though. Hey, look at that. So let this be a lesson to you. By putting in a number that was, by helping it along, it's already getting a better solution. Let's do fixed with estimate, and let's do refine and see if that, our HPIX just dropped remarkably. And things are speeding up. Okay, so let's see. This might be totally wrong. It is. It's totally wrong. But let's go back to known. Let's try a 100 millimeter lens. Go. So this was inadvertently a This was inadvertently a tutorial about how to fix or how to, you know, use your mind to help the solver, because you do that a lot. Like, again, I don't, you know, we here at my little company, we don't ever get easy shots. We only get the hard stuff. And those shots are like, you don't get any help. So I'm going to delete all those trackers, which we know are bad. Let's hit go again. Yeah, that's better. We can even go track, clean up trackers at this point. Bad frames, disable, which I think should be the default. And fix. And we know all these are wrong. So we're just going to keep calling out the ones that we know are wrong, and we're going to just keep refining. So Shift G is the hotkey for go, for resolving the scene. Delete. Delete. Get rid of that one. Oh, look, there's some really nasty ones out here. 8 key to frame everything, and delete, and go. There we go. All right. Shift G one more time. Great. So this is kind of a decent mesh-ish, decent-ish. And what I'm going to do now is save a new version and then go... what am I going to do? I'm going to set this to fixed unknown. I'm going to leave this on refine. And I'm going to hit go and just cross my fingers, because it might explode again, but oftentimes it won't. Like, look, it really did. And this is like a 170 millimeter lens. So my 100 millimeter lens was an underestimate. And again, this would be on a 35 millimeter motion picture camera from, you know, long ago, from the days of Star Wars. But this looks pretty good to me. Yeah, there we go. All right, good, fine, great. Let's go to the 3D room and lock this. Edit scene settings. Let's make our tracker size smaller and hit OK. I'm going to lasso trackers. I could have just hit Command A. Like if I was in Blender, I'd just hit A. I'm going to do one more refine though, because when I look down here, you see in the histogram, there's a little red spike. That basically means your error has jumped at that frame. So let's do cleanup trackers one more time. Fix. And hey, look at that. And then our histogram is much better. And then go, Shift G. We're getting that spike returns a little bit. Track, clean up trackers. That is not what I wanted to do. I did not want to coalesce nearby trackers. I wanted to clean up trackers. Fix. So there's something right, if you look in the very lower right of the screen, right there. And you can see this in, if you go Window Floating Graph Editor. Close that. Actually, no. Let's hide all of our trackers. I don't really want to look at the trackers. What I want to look at is the RMS error. A lot of trackers. A lot of trackers in the shot. There are like 800 trackers in here. I don't know why. How do I turn these all off? Reset time axis. Yeah, I really don't want to see any of these. I just want to see the RMS error. There we go. Sometimes also in the Apple operating system, it could be a macro lens. Absolutely. Absolutely could be a macro lens. Great chance of that, in fact. Sometimes with Mac OS, when you click on things, it just doesn't register the click. And you have to click out into something else and then click back. So, okay, here we are. Let's go back to RMS error. That's what I really want to see. So you see this light blue line. I don't want tracker 3. Stop showing me tracker 3. I don't want to show any of the trackers. There we go. I just had to click out here to deselect all the trackers. But that, and let's turn off the little colored background. So this is the same histogram that you see down in the lower right after solving. So you can really identify where the spikes are, where the problems are in your track much more easily. It's going to be located under active trackers, and it's going to be RMS error. So, okay, let's get rid of the floating graph editor. We don't need that anymore. And let's turn our trackers back on. So what we're going to do is we're going to select all, Control A, in the 3D room, and we're going to go Mesh. We're going to bring up the Mesh menu. 8, 8, 8. Entirely possible that's a macro lens. I should have thought of that. But I'm frequently not the smartest person in the room. Can everybody hear me okay? Yesterday somebody was suggesting I turn up the microphone volume, and I did, but I'm like right hovering at the edge of clipping. So, all right, let's select all of our trackers, and with the mesh menu, we're going to go convert to mesh, and you get a track mesh in the hierarchy view now. Let's undo that. So let's do convert to mesh again. Hey, look, there's the track mesh. It's now yellow. Let's make it white so it's nice and bright against what we've got going on there. Let's turn off our trackers and hide them. And let's lasso vertices, and we're going to just select all the vertices, and we're going to say, yeah, right about there. That's pretty good. I'm going to say triangulate. And this is what I was getting at earlier with Cloud Compare or Mesh Lab. You could basically turn this into a mesh very easily. So there's the mesh for our head. Great. We finally have a mesh for our head. Okay. Now we're going to have some real fun. We're going to take this mesh, track mesh 01, and I'm going to hold down the shift and control key and drag into the hierarchy view and let go and make, what the heck? Look at that. Look at that ugliness. Oh yeah, this is terrible. Now that I'm looking at it, Control Z on that. Let's do a little bit of editing here. So if we go into, let's set it, this is the edit mesh, and orbit around this thing a little bit, because we're going to see that there are some problems, and we're going to fix those by hand. Lasso vertices again. Did I set this as the edit mesh? I thought I did. Set edit mesh. Good, there it is. All right, so I didn't. Let's select that vertex and say remove and repair. We can also delete the Where the heck is it? Delete selected vertices. If you do that, just delete selected vertices right now, you're going to end up with holes in your mesh. So you have to do remove and repair first. And then delete selected vertices. There was one point where I knew how to edit that menu, but it's a bunch of text and whatnot. All right, let's select that vertex, remove and repair, and delete selected vertices, orbit. All right, we're definitely going to get rid of this one because that's terrible. Remove and repair, and then delete selected vertices. I think this is probably okay. With lasso selected vertices on, you can actually select whole triangles, and you can delete selected faces, and delete selected faces. I think, these are just long, obscure faces. All right, there's one more vertex we want to delete right there. Remove and repair, and orbit. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, that's fine. And then delete selected vertices. Now, oftentimes I would just export this to another piece of software like Blender and then do the modifications to the mesh there. It's just easier because the tools are better. Boy, man, I really thought I was going to be done with this. So let's remove and repair that. There should also be a orbit. What? No. Control Z on that. Orbit. Click. Let's remove and repair. And one more right there. Remove and repair. Delete these vertices. Obviously, the excuse that's always used or always has been used is, well, Synthesize isn't a modeling program. And it's like, yeah, okay, that's fine. But, I'm using it for modeling things and, make the tools better. That's really what I want. Delete selected faces. I'm going to delete these oblique faces. Oblique? That's not even the right word. All right, remove and repair. I'm going to say this is good enough. Orbit. Fine. And then we could, I guess we could texture map this. Sure, why not? Now that I'm, let's go into the texture panel and let's create a texture and let's make it, I don't know, 4096 by 4096. And 8-bit non-cosh, lit texture, sure. Extract the best pixel. Now this always, every time I do this, it's not one of those tools you use so often. So we're gonna do it, and it's gonna be like, oh yeah, that's not right. I'm just gonna let you know right now. Set file. Oh, we haven't created a file yet. We have to save it. We have to actually create the texture first. Non-blocking. I think this is average with alpha. That should be like that. I think that's what it should be. And run. Meshes must be set to create a texture and have a texture coordinates for this operation. No. Mesh. Let's try turning off the edit mesh and see if that helps. I'll leave that on best pixel. And run. No, that's not right. Oh, I think we also have to have it locked to the viewport. No. Run all. Options, you must set the file name and type to be able to compression option for the correct type. No, what it's asking, like this. So again, this is one of those things in Synthesize where it's like the user interface is tricky, and it is. So I don't remember how to do this. This is going to be something I'd have to go back and look at the documentation. I was going to just blast the texture onto here, but I know you can do it. I've done it for movies where I've actually used it to remove elements from frames and whatnot. Create texture. There's a button. Look at that. Create texture. Maybe create texture. Maybe that's the button we need. All right. Average with alpha. Let's try that. And we're going to do run. No, that's still not it. Create texture wasn't enough. And it's on for these frames. Show only texture alpha, hide mesh selection. Oh, this is also nice. Just having the hide mesh selection feature, if you open the texture control panel, you turn that on and it'll remove textures in the viewport. I use that all the time too. But I am having a hard time with this. Set file. Renders. Oh, there we go. Lizard. Great. Okay, I think we're getting somewhere. Create texture. I've set it to lizard. We're going to make a BMP file for some reason. Why is that the default? That should not be the default. We'll just make it a JPEG. Save. And run. I feel like we're getting so close. Now I don't want to give up. Now it's like sunk costs. Options, quality 85, okay. Extract best pixel, extract average pixel. Run, no. So, okay, set edit mesh. Does it have to be the edit mesh? Yeah, that's not it. I'm lost, my friends. So this would be one of those things I would have looked at the documentation and whatnot. I just thought that would be boring. But instead, you got to watch all that boringness. Be all that as it may, let's close that. We're just going to use this mesh and we're going to make a... we're going to make that be... we're going to solve that using the GeoH tracker. That's why I made this mesh. We're going to use this mesh to show you how a mesh can be used for the GeoH tracker. Oh, brother. All right, so GeoH track. We're gonna take this track mesh 1 and we're gonna make a duplicate of that again. So it's gonna be over here. And I'm gonna hide this. I'm gonna hide our object. I'm gonna hide all of our trackers. So we're just gonna start as though this is where, this is the mesh that we got to work with. So W, we're gonna move that up here a little bit. Let's move that up a little bit. And we're going to use the pinning tool. So where is that? the pinning tool. Let's close the mesh tool and the GeoH tool. Create edit pins. So let's zoom out a little bit. And we will create a pin here. Drag that up there. Create a pin here. Drag that down here. And now we can, you basically can use this to position the mesh. And let's go null out all errors. Once again, I don't think that this is accepting my, nevertheless, you can go to another frame and then click on the pinning tool again and drag it over and then go back. And every time you do that, your pins disappear. This is also why I keep clamoring for an always solving mode in the GeoH tracker, because if we could just use keyframe by hand trackers, obviously Synthesize is fast enough to do this, but if these were just, you know, trackers that you dropped onto mesh or placed onto mesh, then you could do this and it would be, you know, you could just do all of your animation directly in here. But now we're going to make turn this into a GeoH track. So let's go back to the GeoH track room. I'm going to bring the GeoH toolbar back up, GeoH create. I'm going to hold on the shift key and I'm going to click. Oops, that's not right because I clicked on the gnomon. There we go. So we're going to drag that object right in the middle somewhere. And now that we've done that, there are no trackers for this object. This is object 2. There are no trackers. And we are going to just use the mesh and turn off XYZ, pan, tilt, and roll. And I'm going to click the key button there to remove the keyframe. And I'm just going to tap the space bar or hit play. Okay, what's going on here? This should just be tracking, and it's not. What was I saying earlier about liking to rehearse these before I do them? This should just work. I should just hit play and it should just be tracking right now. So let's try and go forward a frame at a time. This is unlocked. It is set to GeoH. And there we go. Oh, I deleted the first keyframe. So like right now, Synthesize is using the geometry as the tracker. So if you had geometry of a person's face that you basically scanned with your phone, you would just bring it in, align it like this using the pinning tool, and then you have to have that keyframe. So when you have a keyframe on a pattern for a 2D tracker, that's what it needs. It needs that to be, you're defining the pattern. So now I'm going to hit the space bar and it should be fine. So look, Ma, no hands. And there are no 2D trackers in this shot. It's just tracking the geometry. And you don't need, so when you're doing head tracks, if you have a scan of the actor's head and it's, you know, fairly evenly lit and nothing's, you know, going crazy or bonkers, you can align it to the actor's face and then you can do this. And that's really all I really wanted to show. If you want, I'll keep going. How long has this been going? You know, it doesn't show me in the live stream thing on YouTube how long I have been going here. I think it should. but I don't have any indication of like, have I been going for 2 hours? Anyway, I'll tell you what, I'm going to leave it at that. And then I'll pick this up the next time I start, and we'll put in a little sphere for the eye. Let's actually position that now. Boy, man, this mesh is a mess. But even with that messy mesh, it's pretty good. 72 minutes. All right, that's pretty long. But let's go to sphere. This is another complaint I have about SynthEyes. I will complain a lot about. Here's the thing about the difference between me doing tutorials on my own channel and tutorials directly for Boris. You'll hear me complain a lot more on my channel. I'm never going to complain about SynthEyes on the Boris Effects channel. But when I make a sphere, the sphere should not scale from the bottom. That's crazy. Why would... That's a terrible decision. We can edit the pivots, and we can make the pivot point for the sphere be up there, but I shouldn't have to do that. The other thing is this groovy new gizmo that they put on the bottom for scaling, which is nice, actually. I kind of do like it, but I also should be able to turn that off. So that should be in like right-click, view, and then scale gizmo should be in the list of things I can turn off. But anyway, now that I have reset the center of the sphere, I should be able to scale it. Yeah, there we go. So that's how a sphere should scale. It should scale from the middle, right? I'm not cuckoo on that, right? Be that as it may. We can put the eye up here. We'll move it over a little bit. Oh, let's lock that. Move it over a little bit, and then we need to be embedded a little bit more in the face. And then so we should probably also be rotated around so that the pupil is like at one of the poles, more like that. So I think that's good. And then tomorrow, I will show you how, again, using GeoH tracking, to track the rotation of the eye as it like moves around. So that'll be fun. Anyway, thank you for watching for 80 minutes. And I'm really, all I'm trying to do at this point is just get my sea legs, figure out how to do this better, and make it a better experience for everyone. See, look, I just accidentally grabbed that thing and I started scaling the eyeball. I don't want that. I wanted to grab the little gizmo. I should be able to turn that off. That's another oversight. Hold down the control key to rotate around that axis and around that axis. Okay, so there you go. Looks like I've got some catching up to do. Hi, Michael. What do you mean? Did you just joined this late? Because if you did, you can always go back and rewatch it. It'll be reposted soon. It just has to be processed and all of that. And I'm going to cut the beginning off where it was just a mess. All right. Anyway, well, hi, Michael. I guess it's Wednesday. Yeah, I'll try and do this again tomorrow. And then when I do, we'll talk about rotating the eyeball around. And please forgive me for all of if you do rewatch this, for all of the floundering around. And I'll maybe even figure out how to do the projection for the textures when we come back. So that's it. Thank you all for joining me. And I hope to see you soon. And that's it. I guess I'm right back to my early days of YouTube videos with awkward endings.